This video takes a look at the difference between the primary and secondary schizoids. Who are they, and why is there a need to make this type of distinction? The need for this distinction comes from the fact that there are some people who are diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder in the DSM-5 who do not relate to having the internal subjective experience of someone who has a schizoid personality. This creates two types of people who are diagnosed with SPD: those who relate to the internal subjective experience of the schizoid personality, and those who do not. In order to identify a schizoid personality, it's necessary to specify what a schizoid individual actually is. The problem with the DSM-5 criteria for SPD is that it doesn't include the subjective experiences within the inner world of a schizoid personality. Being a schizoid individual means that we live primarily within our inner world, and so by failing to include these aspects of our being, the DSM-5 criteria fails to identify the core aspects and inner functioning of our personality. What this means is that both schizoid individuals and non-schizoid individuals may be diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder. This brings us to the question: what is a schizoid personality or schizoid individual? To answer this, we need to find a criteria that outlines the schizoid subjective experience and inner state of being. We find this by turning to psychoanalytic theory. Harry Guntrip, a psychologist who studied schizoid phenomenology in great depth, outlined the 9 core traits of a schizoid individual. I've made a detailed video on this topic which I will link above. This criteria accounts for the inner subjective experience of the schizoid individual. It looks at schizoid personality dynamics, and amongst other things, it accounts for such things as schizoid defenses, the experience of emptiness, and the fact that we have the potential to present as sociable and engaging to mask our schizoid traits. Bearing everything that I've said in the video thus far, it stands to reason that a person can be diagnosed as having SPD who does not possess all of the 9 core schizoid traits, and therefore does not particularly relate to the schizoid inner subjective experience as explained in psychoanalytic theory. For ease of reference, we will call these two types of people the primary schizoid and the secondary schizoid. Before we take a deeper look at the primary and secondary schizoid, we could look at how the schizoid personality or individual compares to that of the DSM-5 criteria. Here we can see that the schizoid personality has some overlapping traits with those of both avoidant and schizotypal personality disorder, as well as the DSM-5 SPD criteria. Additionally, it contains traits related to the subjective internal experiences of schizoid individuals, which are not specified in any of the DSM-5 disorders, and then would not qualify for a diagnosis in the current DSM. The primary schizoid has developed trauma defenses towards the external world before the phase of individuation was completed. So this is early infancy, before they've developed the sense of being a person in their own right. Because these defenses were formed before conscious life began, there are many schizoid individuals who won't remember any specific trauma. There are also some schizoid individuals who remember negative events occurring in their childhood who had defenses towards these negative events that mitigated the impact of their conscious trauma. This is a complicated issue, and I will be going into much more depth in future videos. Depending on their ability to adapt to the world as a schizoid personality, the life experiences and the level of functioning that they manage to attain over time, a primary schizoid may go on to qualify for a DSM-5 SPD diagnosis. It's also possible for a primary schizoid to go on to qualify for a schizotypal PD diagnosis under certain circumstances, which is also classed as a cluster A personality disorder in the DSM-5. Whereas only some primary schizoids qualify for a DSM-5 SPD diagnosis, all secondary schizoids qualify for DSM-5 schizoid personality disorder. Unlike primary schizoids, secondary schizoids develop psychological defenses to trauma that occurred after the age of individuation, meaning that they have successfully passed through the individuation phase and developed into a person in their own right before trauma ensues. Because they've already developed into a person in their own right, this means that they're more likely to have experienced the trauma consciously and to have taken the trauma personally, which has led to the formation of defenses that have negatively impacted their desire to socialize with other people. In this group, we have a diverse range of individuals who have developed defenses to trauma at various different points in time after the phase of individuation under various circumstances, resulting in a wide range of psychological conditions leading to the development of schizoid personality disorder and a consequent diagnosis. 4 common types of people in the secondary schizoid group who have the propensity to develop SPD are those with avoidant personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as CPTSD, autistic individuals, and people who are considered to be misanthropes but not necessarily diagnosed with a disorder. To summarize, I've coined the terms primary and secondary schizoids to create 2 distinct schizoid categories. This is required to differentiate between the SPD diagnosed schizoids who have an internal subjective experience that aligns with the psychoanalytic version of a schizoid individual and those who don't. This will make future content much clearer for those who wish to learn more about schizoid phenomenology in greater depth. There's a lot more to the primary and secondary schizoid than I've included in this brief introduction, and this is something that I'll be sharing with you in greater depth in alignment with psychoanalytic theory, so this content will be featured in videos to come.